Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grodner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Vigo County residents speak out as new rules overseeing carbon sequestration projects in the state are approved.
I beg you, as I have been begging for 2 years, vote and fight like your children are going to be put at risk by these projects.
Wabash Valley Resources has plans for a sequestration plant near Terre Haute. 1 year after Indiana University-Indianapolis was born from the breakup of IUPUI, the university is charting its own course.
We're this hybrid university that can do things and try things that other campuses can't. I think that's what makes it exciting.
The downtown campus is growing with new laboratories, an athletic center, and more. And the latest results from the state's iLearn test shows a drop in English skills among middle schoolers. We'll have these stories and more right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. After years of meetings, the Natural Resources Commission has granted final adoption of rules overseeing carbon sequestration projects in Indiana. Residents who live near the site of a proposed project feel their concerns have gone unheard. Clayton Baumgarth has more.
All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Thank you very much.
With the swing of the gavel, those opposed to the Wabash Valley Resources carbon sequestration pilot project in Terre Haute felt a wave of defeat.
I'm feeling absolutely frustrated. We have been for over 2 years fighting against this.
Boyce is a lifelong resident in Vigo County and one of 5 project opponents who spoke at the meeting Tuesday evening in Mitchell. She has opposed the project near her family farm since receiving a letter from the EPA informing them their property may be affected by the CO2 storage plume underground.
I beg you, as I have been begging for 2 years, vote and fight like your children are going to be put at risk by these projects. Ask for safety precautions, safety measures, requirements, because my children will be put at risk.
One of the biggest complaints opponents have had of the new state rules is that safety precautions in the event of a leak are not included. The Natural Resources Commission, or NRC, said that is because the supremacy clause in the U.S. Constitution prevents it from making rules covered by federal law.
We understand that they are in the process of adopting new rules. They are still the agency that handles that. That, again, is a preemption supremacy clause issue, where there is a federal statute that covers something, the state cannot also cover that. It is supremacy. So that is the reason that the rules themselves do not cover safety at this time.
In 2023, the state legislature directed the DNR to adopt rules for implementing carbon sequestration projects in Indiana. The adopted rules establish permitting processes, operational requirements, and compliance standards for the growing industry and neighboring landowners. It is unclear, though, how these rules will affect the pilot project in Terre Haute, which has been exempted from previous legislation.
I don't want to comment on behalf of the department about a project that's in Indiana code from our legislator.
Opponents also objected to the chosen locations for these public meetings, saying they are purposefully far from them to make it harder to attend.
We, of course, follow Indiana code for the selection of all of our meeting sites. Today's meeting was dictated by the NRC, which is the commission. It was selected, I think, in our March meeting. which would have been before the agenda was finalized for this specific topic.
And despite leaving comments and sharing concerns, residents still feel they aren't being heard.
It feels like no one's listening. And even when they are listening, we feel like the powers that be have a louder, stronger voice than we do. And they have prevailed. It's been a long journey, and we keep hoping that there will be somebody that stands up for us.
Wabash Valley Resources hasn't yet drilled any test holes or placed any pipelines for the pilot project. The only nearby large CO2 storage site currently operating had a leak last year in Decatur, Illinois. Carbon sequestration is still largely an unproven method for handling CO2 pollution, with only 50 facilities in operation worldwide, according to the Global CCS Institute. Residents had hoped the NRC would not implement rules and prevent projects like this from occurring, but the NRC says that was never an option.
You asked us to do our job, we are doing our job. And this was given to us by the legislature. So this body is doing what the legislature asked us to do, trying to do it the best we can.
Now, residents are hoping that someone else steps in to fight for them.
I am so hopeful that there will be a state senator, a state representative. We would even hope maybe that the governor would change his mind. Somebody say this has to stop.
But with companies like Wabash Valley Resources, BP, and Cardinal Ethanol knocking on Indiana's door to bring their carbon capture developments, legislators and state offices will have a hard time not letting them in. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
The new rules overseeing carbon sequestration in the state could take effect as soon as October. Indiana middle school students are stumbling to make progress in reading and writing. This year's iLearn scores show only about 38% of 7th grade students pass the state's English and language arts exam. That's a drop of nearly 4 points from last year. Overall, more than 40% of students were proficient in English, a slight decrease compared to last year. iLearn measures English language, arts, and mathematics skills for students in grades 3 through 8. And for more on the results released Wednesday, we're joined now by Steve Hennefeld, a media specialist at IU and author of the School Matters blog. Welcome back to the show. So nice to have you.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
So the big takeaway was that drop in middle school English and language scores. Is this just a continued fallout from the pandemic?
I think that the pandemic probably would have something to do with it. I think it's another reminder that was a real disruption to schooling. Keep in mind that these middle school students last year were in 2nd and 3rd grade, 4th grade, and the time that the pandemic really disrupted schooling, a time when they would have been like acquiring those early reading skills. And so maybe it's not surprising that they would be affected still, and that their growth in reading would still be affected. At the same time, keep in mind that the NAEP scores, National Assessment for Educational Progress scores for Indiana, that came in January were actually really good. 8th graders improved, and we're doing Indiana scores were like 6th best in the country. So there's other indicators that may sort of contradict this latest bad news.
Yeah, scores, elementary school students increased over the 2021 test results, but the average passing is only around 41%. What's the state involvement in this?
Well, the state really has put a lot into literacy, into English language arts. They've spent something like $170 million in the last 2 years. A lot of that came from the Lilly Endowment. You know, there's some indication that's made a difference. Those lower grades scores, proficiency rates in iLearn did improve in English language arts, and so that's, you know, that's a good thing. What they haven't done, to my knowledge or to date, is to put that kind of effort into reading for those kids that are currently in middle school, where there's an expectation that, yeah, you've already learned to read and now you're reading to learn.
How about Monroe County Community Schools? How did they fare in average with the state?
In average with the state, Monroe County Community Schools and Richland Beam Blossom Schools were above average. So were the charter and private schools in Monroe County. All
Monroe County pretty well above the state average. Sort of the caveat there is that if you break it down further school by school, there are some schools that are high, some schools that are low. We've always seen that in Monroe County with high poverty and low poverty schools. And if you disaggregate the scores, there were bigger gaps in Monroe County than in the state on average, for example, between black students and white and Asian students, between students who qualify for free and reduced lunch and students who don't.
Got about 30 seconds left, though. Of course, we're talking about a lot of funding cuts, and schools are one of them. How's that going to affect?
Well, it's significant. It's going to be significant. Schools are getting significantly much less money than they anticipated, and there's just this expectation in Indiana and elsewhere, as you well know, that you're going to do more with less, and it just doesn't work that way.
Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Indiana government fiscal leaders say the state remains in a solid financial position as they close the books on the last fiscal year Tuesday. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports, while the state finished its fiscal year in the black, fears remain about the financial future.
Fiscal leaders say there were times the last couple of months they thought Indiana would end its fiscal year with a revenue deficit, but due in part to the timing of tax payments, Indiana ended with $336 million more than it spent and $2.5 billion in reserve.
Hoosiers can remain confident that our financial footing is stable, despite a year marked by economic fluctuations.
Going forward, State Budget Director Chad Ranney says his office will analyze the potential impact of the recent federal tax and spending cut package on state finances. He says budget reserves will ensure the state can maintain high level of services. Democratic Senator Fadi Kadura says a balanced budget is a good thing, but he questions the fiscal priorities of Republican leaders at both the state and federal level.
It unfortunately shifts the support and the incentives to corporations and to wealthy families or wealthy individuals at the same time that is really neglecting and leaving behind the most vulnerable in our communities.
Governor Mike Braun says he's not worried about the impact of Medicaid or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program cuts in federal legislation.
If we're enterprising ourselves, we'll find ways, even if it puts more burden on us, to do it better and more efficiently.
Braun administration fiscal leaders say they're analyzing the impact of the federal measure. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
We're joined now by Clayton Baumgarth for more headlines from around the state.
Hey, Joe. Hundreds of people gathered at the Monroe County Courthouse Square Thursday evening to protest actions by the Trump administration, such as the SAVE Act, which would require people to present U.S. citizenship documents to register to vote.
Make good trouble! Make good trouble! Necessary trouble! Necessary trouble!
The protest was part of a national movement, Good Trouble Lives On, organized on the 5th anniversary of Congressman John Lewis's passing. Protesters walked from the courthouse to the Monroe County Justice Center. They spoke out not only against immigration policy, but on funding cuts to federal programs and legislation targeting the LGBTQ+ community.
The state of Indiana is very clearly on a crusade to do as much damage to its trans community as possible.
Members of 5051, a nonviolent movement with grassroots organizers, led the nationwide protests Thursday. It's the same group that spearheaded the No Kings protests in June. The Indiana Family and Social Services Administration says it will release more than 4,400 slots for the Pathways and Health and Wellness waivers. That only covers about 1/3 of the 13,000 people still on the wait list for home and community-based health services. About 1,000 people were inactive at the end of June, and if they don't return to active status, those slots will be reassigned.
Not only are you delaying services, you're ultimately shorting lifespans, you're isolating people with disabilities, and you're increasing hardships to families.
FSSA says it has also set aside 500 priority slots between the two waivers for people residing in assisted living. Wheeler Mission in Bloomington is expanding. The shelter kicked off a fundraising campaign last week by announcing that it had raised about $3.4 million of its $4.2 million goal. Donnie Burgess has this report.
The expansion doesn't include more beds, but it does include adding office spaces and private exam rooms for case managers and service providers, such as Centerstone and HealthNet.
We really, in 2023, we sat down and said we cannot continue just to offer bed space, but we've got to do what we do and do it with excellence.
When Wheeler came to Bloomington in 2015 and merged with Agape House and Backstreet Mission, it increased shelter capacity from 20 beds to 130. Jones says the expansion overwhelmed programming. Of the more than 600 men who stayed at Wheeler in 2024, 41% received services.
It wasn't that the numbers were continually growing, but also, especially after COVID, the problems that they were suffering with were growing greater. So each individual person had greater issues develop, like someone who may have had mild mental illness now was experiencing severe mental illness.
Jones says Wheeler Bloomington, which serves upwards of 60,000 meals annually, wants to upgrade its dining and cafeteria. The upgrade will allow for work readiness training for guests. The fundraising will go to increasing classroom space and long-term residential programs the shelter can offer as well. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Donnie Burgess.
And finally, the Bloomington's Park and Recreation Department is asking for public input on its next 5-year plan, which will help guide the department's priorities and long-term goals. The city says a master plan is helpful in ensuring the department is financially responsible and cares for the infrastructure and the environment, all while prioritizing the community's needs.
It's really important that we do hear from everybody in our community so that we can ensure that our long-term plan incorporates the meeting of as many of those needs as we can.
And Joe, the public input process will also include focus groups, public workshops, and pop-up events.
More splash pads, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Thank you, Clayton. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Indiana University-Indianapolis is charting a new course since its partnership with Purdue University ended 1 year ago. And a new book by a national sports writer says the WNBA has mismanaged its first superstar, the Indiana Fever's Caitlin Clark. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
This is the moment that you've been waiting for.
On your marks, get set,
go!
Discover extraordinary lost worlds.
I know scientists that would give their right arm for this.
This is heaven.
Hope y'all ready.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Since ending its collaboration with Purdue last summer, IU has been creating a new urban research campus in Indianapolis. Its leaders say they're trying to balance massive new initiatives with historic local connections. Aubrey Wright reports how Indiana University-Indianapolis is moving forward after its first year.
The campus is quieter in July. But in between orientation and summer classes, projects are sprouting up. Visitors can see new laboratories and an athletic center, to name a few. With more than 650,000 square feet of construction, IU Indianapolis is trying to honor its roots while branching out.
We are different. We've been realigned in ways that really did change the campus.
The 55-year-old IUPUI campus ended last summer. It was a collaborative campus between IU and Purdue University, and their leaders announced the separation in 2022.
The Indianapolis campus has nearly limitless potential to make an even greater impact in the region and in the state of Indiana in the years ahead.
IU kept most of IUPUI's campus in the deal. Leaders pitched the split as a way to graduate more students and prepare a modern workforce. Those are values Chancellor Lata Ramchand is upholding.
How do we connect them to internships, to co-op opportunities, so that by the time they're in their senior year, they have a job offer in hand?
Goff says IUPUI had its beginnings in professional training, so it's natural for IU Indianapolis to build on that.
We try at the same time to be a full-service university offering everything a person needs to have a full education and not just job training.
And the university is capitalizing on a push to grow the biological tech industry in the city. Along with significant investments from IU, biotech labs have been funded by local partners such as Eli Lilly.
The initiative shows great promise to enhance and expand our state's intellectual capital in one of Indiana's most important industry sectors.
Along with local business partners, local schools are playing a huge role. 84% of IU Indianapolis students are from the state, and most will live and work in Indiana after they graduate.
We are thinking about what we want to keep from what we were, very socially engaged, very engaged in the community and in the classrooms.
The campus launched a new seamless admissions program, so qualifying high school seniors are automatically admitted. All Indianapolis public schools are part of the program, and it's expanding to other school districts. The goal is to get more kids in college.
Let's go out into the community. Let's go to the high schools. Let's talk to the principals. Let's talk to high school counselors and understand what is it that prevents students from wanting to come to college.
In addition to Indiana's workforce and education needs, IU Indianapolis is responding to the state's laws. For example, this year, legislators required public colleges to remove degree programs with a low number of graduates. Ramchand's campus is cutting almost 50 degrees. Though it's had pushback from some at IU, she believes the changes could help the university meet all learners where they are.
We don't change what we teach. The laws of physics have not changed. But we are making changes to the way in which we deliver education.
The loss of federal funding and new mandates are another issue. Goff says the removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs could be a problem in Indianapolis.
Because we're an urban university, an urban serving university. And a number of the changes now, the cutting back on DEI initiatives, that hurts urban universities more than it does others.
Still, he says IU Indianapolis has a lot going for it. It's a research one like IU Bloomington, but embedded into the community like a regional campus.
We're this hybrid university that can do things and try things that other campuses can't. I think that's what makes it exciting.
Goff says IU Indianapolis is a fun place to be right now.
I've been a professor now for 33 years, and I have to say I'm more excited now than I ever have been.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Aubrey Wright.
And with the WNBA All-Star Game tomorrow in Indianapolis, USA Today sports columnist and best-selling author Christine Brennan discussed her new book on her game Thursday at Morgenstern Books. Natalie Fitzgibbons has more on the book about Caitlin Clark of the Indiana Fever, making history not only in women's sports, but in the sports world overall.
Brennan was first introduced to Clark in February 2023 while watching the Indiana-Iowa's women's basketball game from her kitchen. Brennan wasn't watching the game for Clark. Brennan was watching in support of family members who are IU alumni. Brennan watched Clark, with 1.5 seconds left, make a three-point shot off balance with her left leg askew, winning the game for Iowa.
It allowed me to kind of think about it and realize that there was something really special about this person. And what you see her produce on a basketball court, that was so unlike anything I'd seen in a women's basketball player, and I've covered the women's game for years.
From there, Brennan continued to watch Clark more, which led to her write on her game, released last week and currently #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. Brennan saw the transformational impact Clark was making in the WNBA. The NCAA Women's Championship game in 2024, with Clark and Iowa losing to South Carolina, had 4 million more viewers than the NCAA Men's Championship.
The men were Monday night prime time, and the women still had 4 million more viewers than the men. That's extraordinary, right? And that, can you believe I just said that sentence, right? And the superlatives continued.
Brennan also took note of how the WNBA was unprepared for Clark and the jealousy she spawned among other players. There is also a chapter in her book called Olympic Snub about Clark being left off the U.S. team. Brennan covered Indiana Fever games, practices, and interviewed not only those around Clark, but Clark herself. Brennan says Clark answered every question thoughtfully.
She was just such a mature person, so anything, everything. All the racial issue questions that came to her, the way she handled those. As I say in the book, she's 22 going on 40 or 50.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Natalie Fitzgibbons.
Clark is injured and will not be playing in tomorrow's All-Star game. Brennan says she expects the TV ratings to drop without Clark on the floor. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Maller Grotner Plummer Attorneys, understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis, on the web at lawngp.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson, attorneys at law since 1949, utilizing experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.